The new NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte met with newly elected US President Donald Trump to discuss the new administration's approaches to global security issues, as well as the strategy for negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. Mark Rutte met with Trump's named National Security Advisor, Mike Olds, and other new US President's team. And this meeting is already a quite significant event ahead of Donald Trump's return to the presidency of the United States. As is known, during his first term in office, Donald Trump had an extremely negative attitude not only towards the North Atlantic Alliance itself, but also towards the United States' obligations regarding security in Europe. He urged European governments to increase their defense spending, threatening otherwise to stop the United States' protection of European countries and even to withdraw the United States from NATO. Trump did not change his rhetoric even after losing the presidency, and the possibility of the United States' withdrawal from NATO remained an important option throughout his entire election campaign. When the former American president won the elections for the head of the American state, doubts arose about whether he would continue the active participation of the United States in the North Atlantic Alliance, and even that he would seek ways to bypass the law that does not allow the President of the United States to withdraw the United States from this organization in order to put an end to the very system of Euro-Atlantic security. However, the meeting between the NATO Secretary General and the newly elected President of the United States may indicate that Donald Trump has no such real intentions, at least as of today, and on the contrary, he is thinking about what the Euro-Atlantic security system should look like in the future. Fierce. He communicated with Trump back when he was the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. Both politicians have a good personal relationship, which is very important when it comes to Donald Trump. As is known, the newly elected President of the United States pays attention to his personal likes and dislikes rather than any strategic political issues, as it should be with a classical politician. Well, of course, an important question remains how the war in Ukraine will end, or if it will end at all. Behind the report that Trump and Rutte discussed the strategy for negotiations lies the fact that neither politician knows whether these negotiations will even begin. After all, we understand perfectly that the very possibility of starting negotiations depends not only on the newly elected President of the United States, but also on the President of the Russian Federation, who recently he resorts to a sharp escalation of the Russian-Ukrainian war and does not seem like a person who wishes to end this war in the foreseeable future, at least on the terms that would allow Donald Trump to be considered a peacemaker and a person who ended the Russian-Ukrainian war by preserving not only Russian, but also Ukrainian and Western interests. With each passing day that brings Donald Trump closer to his inauguration as President of the United States, it becomes clear that the newly elected American president has no understanding of how to end the Russian-Ukrainian war, and his generous promises that he would end it literally within a few hours by calling President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky and President of Russia Vladimir Putin were populist campaign slogans that are not connected to reality. And now, Donald Trump, as is often the case with populist politicians, is returning to this reality, and along with him, his closest circle is returning to reality as well. And these people are beginning to realize that they have no recipes for either ending the war between Russia and Ukraine or ending the war in the Middle East, nor warnings of new crises that may accompany Donald Trump's entire presidency and be a sign of a third world war, which will ultimately be associated with the surname of the 45th and 47th President of the United States. In order to avert all these negative events, Donald Trump certainly needs to talk to the so-called classical politicians. and it is likely that a dialogue with the NATO Secretary General could add a bit of reality to his collection of promises that he will have to work with after January 2025. The joint position of the United States and its allies is important. Understanding how Russia's victory in the war with Ukraine and the erasure of Ukraine from the political map of the world, which Vladimir Putin continues to dream of, threatens the interests of European security and, as a result, the glaring reduction of the geopolitical role of the United States will be felt not only in this country's role in Europe, which seems to concern Donald Trump and his supporters very little, but also in the role of the United States in the Asia-Pacific region, as it will significantly increase the capabilities of the People's Republic of China, which Trump continues to consider the main threat to the United States. So it can be considered that Trump and Rutte discussed not only the issues of what the negotiations to end the Russian-Ukrainian war should be like, but also the very likelihood of these negotiations. So far, the newly elected American president continues to search for a candidate who will become the special representative in the negotiations aimed at ending the Russian-Ukrainian war. Many names have already been mentioned that would meet these criteria. The latest name that appeared in the media just today is Richard Grenell, the former head of intelligence during Donald Trump's first presidency. However, the very fact that Trump is looking for someone who could start the Russian-Ukrainian negotiations at least indicate a certain degree of realism in the new American president. The fact that he already realizes that the war will not end with just phone calls between Zelensky and Putin, that the representative of the US president will have to do the hard work, even to reconcile the positions of the parties, but at least to find out what these real positions are. And of course, such hard work may stretch over years. And it is possible that the most likely scenario for the development of events could last for the entire term of Donald Trump as President of the United States. And here Mark Rutte, of course, needed to explain to the newly elected American president that this term should be associated with supporting Ukraine's resistance to Russian aggression in 2025-2029, if, of course, America and Europe do not manage to convince to sit at the negotiating table and end the war of the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel, subscribe to it, follow my social media and the Patreon channel of Bema Kofi and Dinatela, which help develop these sources. Use the sponsorship feature on YouTube itself. Victory and peace. Good luck.